You're probably aware that squirrels are cute, fluffy, bushy-tailed rodents that spend their time leaping nimbly between trees, burying nuts, and generally trying to avoid becoming prey to predators like hawks, owls, and humans. But did you know there's more to these creatures than meets the eye? From the way they store food in their cheeks to how they communicate with each other, squirrels do things in ways that might seem bizarre or even gross. But to understand why, we need to look at how they evolved, what pressures they're up against, and how these behaviors help them survive. Okay, let's start with one of the most iconic squirrel behaviors, their big, bushy tails. They're not just for show. Squirrels use their tails for balance when they're leaping through the trees, which makes sense given that some species can jump 10 feet from tree to tree. Their tails also play a role in squirrel communication. When they're flicking their tails back and forth, it's a sign of alarm. And if a squirrel is feeling threatened, it will often raise its tail up over its head in a submissive gesture, hoping to show the predator only its tail instead of its more vulnerable belly. But tails aren't the only part of squirrels that can reveal how they're feeling. Just like dogs, squirrels will wag their tails when they're happy, often while begging for food from humans. However, a squirrel's tail isn't the most obvious part of their body that reveals their emotions. That distinction goes to their ears. If a squirrel is angry or agitated, its ears will be flattened against its head. And if it's relaxed or curious, its ears will be forward-facing. Now let's move on to another strange squirrel behavior, cheek pouches. You've probably seen these little bags before, especially if you've ever had a squirrel scampering around your yard. These stretchy sacs are an important part of a squirrel's life because they allow the animal to carry food back to its nest. Without them, squirrels would have to make multiple trips to relocate their stash. And not only does this waste energy, but it leaves the squirrel vulnerable to predators in between trips. The extra space in their mouths also allows squirrels to collect more food in a single outing. The more food they can gather, the better prepared they are for times when food is scarce. Speaking of cheeks, squirrels have another unusual body part, their whiskers. Well, technically, they're just modified hairs, but these highly sensitive structures help squirrels navigate in the dark and feel their way through tall grasses or underbrush. Whiskers are especially helpful for newborn squirrels who rely on them to find their way to their mother's milk. They can also tell their owners when it's time for breakfast. In fact, scientists have found that squirrels living in captivity will come to associate their human caregivers' morning routines with meal times. So they'll start making noise at the same time every day, just like you might be doing right now. Of course, there are plenty of other animals that wake up early, but squirrels take it to a whole new level. Like many other animals, squirrels are crepuscular, meaning they're most active at dawn and dusk. But they're also what's known as polyphasic, meaning they can sleep up to 14 hours a day in multiple short bouts. So they might be up for a few hours in the morning, then take a break for a nap before getting up again in the afternoon. Being polyphasic allows squirrels to conserve energy and stay active during the cooler parts of the day, which helps them avoid overheating. It also gives them more opportunities to look for food. This flexibility means that squirrels can adapt to different food sources and find meals even when their usual sources of food are gone. And speaking of food, there's one last thing we need to discuss: burying it. As you may know, squirrels bury their food so that they can retrieve it later. But they don't actually eat most of the stuff they stash away. Instead, they bury nuts as a way to spread trees and help new ones grow. Once a nut is buried, the forest floor does the rest of the work. The nut remains intact until it's surrounded by moisture, oxygen, and the right temperature, at which point it sprouts roots and begins growing into a new tree. Squirrels don't bury all their nuts and they forget where some of them are buried, but that doesn't matter. All the squirrel has to do is find just one buried nut in order to successfully grow more trees and ensure the continuation of its species. So the next time you see a squirrel scampering around, remember that this busy little creature is not only adorable, it's also an important part of its ecosystem. Speaking of adorable, if you're looking for more videos about cute animals, check out our channel, and thanks for watching.